What's up, guys, and welcome, Daily Theologians. This is a basic video, but the reason I wanted to do this is because today is the day where we get to vote to help better our neighbors' situation and the betterment of people that we care about. And so wisdom is the issue. Wisdom is what is needed right now. And basically, the core premise here is that fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And so when we start from that perspective, when we recognize that God's grace is evident in the book of Proverbs, that Jesus is wisdom personified, that he fulfilled the law perfectly in our place, took an infinite hell that died and rose, we can recognize the book of Proverbs as being a book that shows us that we can never measure up to this standard. We will never be this wise or be able to do these things perfectly. With that in mind, though, there are many common grace principles that apply to even unbelievers in this book. These are common sense principles often that should humble people and point them to the righteousness of Christ. Whatever you do with the book of Proverbs, though, I recommend today looking at it, and specifically, I wanted to look at a couple of key areas here, one of those being the role of government. By me, kings reign and rulers decree what is right and good, and by princes rule and nobles all who govern justly. Now, that's what we want. We want just governance. We want people that recognize their God-given office is to punish evil and reward good, protect the rights of the people, to worship God rightly. I mean, ideally would be our goal. Now, again, we are not saying that this nation should be a, quote, Christian nation, though certainly that would not be a bad thing. I'm not quite clear on why so many people think that, well, if you want this nation to reflect God's character and image and people to be saved in it and see a great awakening type of thing, that then somehow you are misplacing your trust and you're becoming someone that seeks the nations over God. I don't think the two are opposed to each other. I think we have to hold that loosely and recognize that God is perhaps judging this nation, though, and not put our trust in a system of man and humanity, as we see perhaps even Daniel living out his faith under a very pagan system, and also other people, Joseph as well, and many of the early church apostles, like Paul and John, and they're living it out under a very evil system, and of course our best example, Jesus. But back to government, it's an abomination for kings to do evil, for the throne is established by righteousness. Boy, that would be great. A king's wrath is a messenger of death. The wise man will appease it. In the light of a king's face, there's life. His favors like the clouds that bring the spring rain. These, of course, are all good principles for recognizing what a good ruler looks like. When we look at lies and justice, here's one. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice, watching over the way of his saints. So we have to remember God protects us, God guides us, God is for us, God is for things like marriage. Drink water from your own cistern, of course, talking about adultery. Better is dinner of herbs with love than a fattened ox where hatred with it is. Yes, don't argue with your spouse. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. When we look at neighbors, what's the value of neighbors? What standard do we want to speak out for what is right and good for our neighbors? Well, here you go. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again, when you have the power to help them. And other things, don't belittle your neighbor. If you do that, you lack sense. A man of understanding will remain silent. There will be ample opportunities today for you to remain silent in the face of absurdity and perhaps even injustice. When we look at neighbors, a man of violence entices his neighbor and leads him in a way that is not good. Isn't that what we're seeing across the nation right now? Soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor finds no mercy in his eyes. People desire evil. People desire power. Death is a tool that Satan has been using from the beginning. Basically, there are two tools that Satan has, lies and death. Basically, lies are the primary tool that would say, hey, if you do this, you'll be happy. If you do this, you'll be happy. You deserve this or that, when those things are not necessarily promised in the Bible. We see this with false Christian teachers as well as just outright evil people or downright evil people. But basically that and then death is the way to silence enemies and to exert power. Let your foot seldom be in your neighbor's house, lest he have his fill of you and hate you. A man who bears false witness against his neighbor is like a war club or a sword or sharp arrow. You know, if people had a general love for their neighbors, they wouldn't lie to them. They would work hard. They wouldn't be lazy. They would respect their children. They would live in patience with others. They would hate pride. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle. This is everyone looking for a handout for the student loans and the college things. Yeah, that they're going to be poor because poor decisions got them into that place in most cases, and it's not other people's responsibility to pay for their debts. In fact, there's a section in Proverbs on debt. Don't get debt. This is the Dave Ramsey verse, like a bird, like a gazelle. Flee debt. Give your eyes no sleep, and your eyelids no slumber. Dave would quote that often, like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter. There it is. Bird from the fowler, Proverbs 6:1. When you look at debt, debt is not something wise people do. If you have debt, there are things that come up like medical things and other issues, but avoid debt. Don't take debt. Credit cards are evil. Those companies exploit people to purchase things that you don't really need anyways. So the Bible is clear on debt. It's not necessarily a sin to have debt, though some debt probably would fall into that category, but it's not wise at the very least. Children are a gift from God. And we see that in the book of Proverbs. We see the book of Proverbs talk about the man who has anger. Vexation of a fool is known at once, but the prudent ignores an insult. Remember that one today. I'm sure we're going to have opportunity for that one, especially at the polls. Remember to pray for the people around you. Remember this is a spiritual battle, and there are issues. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1. We use that often with our kids. Hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but he is slow to anger, quiets contention. I know a few people in my life that have been very wise. One of them is my friend named Av, and he exemplifies a lot of the wisdom in the book of Proverbs. It's just he's slow to speak. He listens carefully. He's kind. These types of things can break the bone, but also show love and empathy for others. So remember, it's a spiritual battle. So we want to remain wise. And then by what standard do we pass a lot of the legislation that's looking to be passed today towards children, towards marriage, towards families? Well, it's not a godly standard. It's a demonic standard that they're trying to promote. A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is sorrow to his mother. A wise son hears his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. Isn't that true? We're a nation full of scoffing children that do not recognize truth. Whoever spares the rod hates his son. In other words, children need discipline. You don't coddle your children. You can't discipline them constantly, but it is true. The fear of the Lord has strong confidence. His children will have a refuge. On and on the Bible talks about wisdom. And the book of Proverbs really should be a go-to place each day for you as believers. If it's not, you really need to consider why you're not studying it, because foolishness is the issue of the day. Lack of fear of God is the issue of the day. Lack of contentment, lack of generosity, they're all connected to the ultimately most humble, most generous, most kind person, Jesus Christ, who is wisdom personified. Again, fulfilled the law, paid an infinite hell that died and rose. And once you have a new heart, you can see these issues as they should be seen with patience. We could recognize that we are poor in spirit. We could recognize that we should care for the downtrodden and the destitute, but that we should work hard because poverty is often the result of people that have become lazy and they're not working, and they should not be cared for because they're not willing to work. They should be put in a place where they recognize the decency of work, the value of work, and not blame others for their lack of desire to do so. Wealth, a slack hand causes poverty. How would you like to see a politician stand up and say this? Hey, you know what the problem in our nation is? A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. That could obviously be twisted, but you see here that the Bible talks a lot about the value of work, and the value of going to the ant, O sluggard, and learn her ways, the value of neighbors, the value of patience, the value of humility. I mean, wouldn't it be so great if our politicians just used the book of Proverbs for their governing principles, for their common grace? Because there's nothing that's going to be offensive in here other than the idea of male and female in marriage being good, which should not be offensive. God hates pride. Pride goes before the fall, etc. The fear of the Lord is the hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance in the way of evil. The perverted speech I hate. But yet so much of the perverted speech passes for good in our day. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. I mean, imagine somebody just using the book of Proverbs to govern rightly. They would be, I don't know, what would you say, wise? They would have wisdom. The wisdom from above is pure, peaceable, etc. Anyways, the book of Proverbs, the book needed in our day. Of course, the work of Christ, empowering us to understand the book of Proverbs rightly in its proper context. But I think no greater book for our day, perhaps, than the book of Proverbs from a practical living standpoint. If you haven't studied Proverbs, check it out. Look at it by category like this. I think that will help you because essentially the book of Proverbs is organized by categories anyways, so this would help you understand the different topics. Thanks for watching. Remember to take a moment, hammer that like button, like the 95 Theses, and leave a comment below. God bless.